Well, I'll just
Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead and say that I think when I was younger, it definitely took a more hoarding. Well, no, rewind. When I was very young, like a child, it was about contamination and about cleanliness, and um, and not just germs or dirt, but things touching that I didn't think should be touching.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of hair pulling, and as I got older, it morphed into hoarding. And currently, well, let me go back a little bit further. Then it became checking compulsions. And that's another reason why I didn't really recognize OCD, because I didn't know that it's, plastic and moves. And I just thought, well, I don't do that anymore. So I'm just over OCD.
Right.
Yeah. Checking was a big thing. Now it's more, fortunately, intrusive thoughts about harming people. And I have an OCD relationship to a phobia. A phobia that's actually so intense that I can't even write it down. Like I have magical thinking when it comes to this particular thing. So my therapist and I have a certain kind of language we do to talk about it. So I'll just say I have obsessive thoughts about this particular thing. And so that's where I'm at.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Well, yeah. Well, mine centers around health anxiety. In fact, in the olden days, I was diagnosed with hypochondria, but now they call it health health anxiety. I think that's what they label it. But I have a fear of getting sick. It is manageable at the current time, but kind of the backstory with me, how I even got the step to go into therapy was because I thought I was coughing up blood, and I was terrified, like literally for weeks. And my husband basically just drugged me to the doctor. And I call myself totally fortunate or blessed because my doctor, which is Guy, not saying he wouldn't have known, was out of town. So they sent me to this woman doctor that I didn't know. And she asked me a question. I can't remember what it was, but it was like it opened up the floodgates. And I just literally fell apart in front of her. And, I'm crying and all of this. And she was wise enough to say, would you like to talk to someone? And I remember going, I want to talk to someone. And that's how it kind of started for me, having the fear of being sick, which it ended up being a dental problem to show you how extreme, I was. But my main focus is still that. 10 years ago, I couldn't say the word cancer because it was like, if I say it, I'm going to get it. So it is a journey. I'm at a good place, I think, right now. But as we all know, it's always an up and down kind of roller coaster that we're on. But that still remains my biggest fear, along with a few phobias. I just worked on the fear of flying. So I have kind of done that. I still need to challenge it, but I've kind of done that. But my main focus definitely centers around getting sick. You have it, I got it.
Yep. Yeah.
And I used to do, you asked me, and I used to do a lot of checking, Googling. I would spend hours Googling till I learned that's the worst thing to do because you always go too far. You'll find 20 things that tell you you're okay. And then on that last one, it sends you over the edge. I did a lot of checking. I went through this thing where I had to check my body. I really went through a really hard time where I think I was borderline on maybe getting that body, body.
Yeah,
the one
body
where you,
dysmorphia.
yeah, because I will wake up in the morning and I was afraid to look in the mirror because every time I looked in the mirror, I was afraid I was going to see something wrong. It was like, my nose looked different, my eyes was different, my ears looked upside down. It got so bad that I started measuring, both sides. And if it wasn't equal, my day was gone. But that's kind of when it was at its worst. But those are the things that I basically did: the self-assurance, intrusive thoughts, the checking, and the fear of getting sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to say it's inspirational that your fear of flying was something you've been able to work on, because that's actually one of mine too. I haven't been on a plane in a very long time, and the last flight I was on was very bad. So, which was not good for me to be a nervous flyer and that to be the last note.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
anyway, it's the
Yeah.
inspiration that to
Stay
hear from.
encouraged. Stay encouraged. It took me 25 years though.
Wow. Okay.
I think
Yeah.
Delta, I had a client who had a fear of flying, and I think Delta, I'm not sure if they still have it, and it's probably like different with COVID now, but they have kind of like a tour that they'll do for you for people that have a fear of flying. So they'll like let you go through the checkout process, like board a plane. So it's kind of like its own like type of an exposure. So I know that they kind of have resources with that. That's kind of cool. That so yeah, you can actually like, you know, just walk through it and mentally prepare yourself for the possibility of getting in a fiery plane crash.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, you both kind of already touched on this one, but what treatment did you receive when you first went to therapy? Was it ERP? Was it other types of treatment? A lot of times it can take people a little bit of time to get to the right treatment with OCD and exposure therapy.
Well, my very first experience, like I said, was in 2009, following talking to the doctor who said, "Would you like to speak to someone?" So for 2 years, basically, I was seeing her, but in my mind, it's like I'm going because I have the fear of flying. I still had no idea, and I was still having all these symptoms. And it wasn't that she wasn't a good therapist. She just wasn't right for me. She had the white coat. She was younger. She was cute. She was white. All of those things, I think, put up a invisible blockage for myself that I didn't realize. But she was wise enough. I always give her credit, because she was wise enough to send me to a group session, because I was having all these anxieties, and it was in that group session. And I've always been one. I got something to say, very open, transparent. I think it comes with age. But that therapist who was running the group noticed the OCD in me, and she pulled me aside, and she was like, please keep this between us, because I've never done this before. That's why I say she was God sent. And she said, I don't want my other patients to think I'm playing favoritism. But she said, I think you're suffering from OCD. But she said, but I'm not a specialist, and I'm going to refer you to a specialist. And so that was 2 years of kind of the talk therapy. And then I went into, she ended up being my therapist. And I went into many, many years of face-to-face talk therapy. I've done groups, the CBT. Eventually, when I got to the OCD specialist, she was the one to really encourage me to do the ERP, which I did in, I think, 2016 or 17, one of those years. And that was life-changing. But, and I did that independently on my own, because I didn't have they no longer do it as an individual service. But that was life-changing.
Yeah. Wow.
So now it's just maintenance. I still, check in with my therapist. I still doing the telehealth with my OCD group. But that's basically it. Trying to keep my foot wet, but not soaked.
Yeah. Yeah.
My story begins, 2017 was a hellish year for me. When people talk about 2020 being this horrible year, it's like 2017 was my horrible year. 2020 doesn't even compare. In terms of personally, of course, the collective is going through a lot. But I had a flare-up of symptoms. I wasn't eating. I lost a lot of weight. I was very non-functional. I was also alone, living in a small town, no friends, majority white, very isolated, and also experiencing symptoms. And what happened was I went to the city, the largest city at the time, the largest big city where I lived at the time. I went to the emergency room there at the mental health hospital.
Yeah.
And I actually got, a psychiatrist saw me, and I was able to get like medication prescription pretty quickly, which was rare. And then he told me there was some kind of outpatient anxiety program, basically an anxiety clinic. So you go 3 times a week and for 3 hours, and it was great.
Yeah.
And there was still something that wasn't quite right. I have anxiety diagnoses that feel right, but I knew that wasn't the whole picture. But from there, I graduated from the program, whatever. I went on with my life. And that's when my partner and I were talking. And she said, I think you might, the OCD thing might be in the mix as well. And from there, I got connected with my current therapist, who's amazing, who I love so much. And I see her once a week, and she also coordinates a group therapy once a week. So I go to group therapy and individual therapy, and also take 2 medications to help. So,
yay for meds.
Yeah.
Well, I should add too that I do take 1 medication, and I did go through a group. I think they call it like outpatient, real intense kind of therapy, where I was going. I think 2 times a week, 3 hours a day for like 4 or 6 weeks. And that was the first stepping stone to get into the ERP.
Right.
But that was a great help. And it was simply because people understood. It was all women. I don't know if it was designed like that, but even having that understanding with each other and kind of that instant almost sisterhood was very powerful. So, but I did do that, and the medication. It took me 3 years, which is probably one of my biggest regrets, fighting against taking medication. So I'm a big advocate for what you need to do.